A black waitress struggled to regain custody of her son, but when a millionaire farmer entered her life, everything changed. Caitlin wiped the table 17 for the third time. The wall clock showed 10:45 p.m. Her fingers ached. Her feet throbbed inside her worn sneakers. The restaurant was empty except for her and the night cook. "You can go home, Kate," Roberto shouted from the kitchen. "It's cleaner than a hospital." She didn't respond. She took the crumpled letter from her apron pocket and read it for the 10th time. Hearing scheduled for July 15th. 21 days. Her hands trembled. Her phone vibrated. A photo of Thomas appeared on the screen. He was smiling, showing his missing front teeth. Jason had sent the photo with the message, "He doesn't even ask about you anymore." Caitlin put away her phone. Her short nails scratched the plastic table. The ceiling fan spun lazily, spreading the smell of old coffee and grease. "Need a ride?" Roberto appeared at the kitchen door, removing his apron. "No, thanks. I still have to finish up here." "It's almost 11, girl." "Just a little longer." Roberto sighed and left through the back. The front doorbell rang. Caitlin turned, clutching the cloth in her hand. A tall man entered, shaking dust from his boots on the doormat. He wore jeans, a plaid shirt, and a worn cowboy hat. He looked around the empty restaurant. "Sorry," said Caitlin. "We're closing." "Just coffee?" he asked. His voice was deep and calm. "I've been driving for 5 hours straight. Need to stay awake for one more." Caitlin hesitated. The man sat at the counter, removing his hat. He had wrinkles around his eyes and gray hair at his temples. "Please," he insisted. "I promise not to take long." She went to the coffee maker. Her hands were still shaking when she poured coffee into a clean cup. The man watched her movements in silence. "Thank you," he said when she placed the cup in front of him. His eyes noticed her name tag. "Caitlin." She nodded and went back to cleaning tables. The back doorbell rang again. Roberto had left. The man drank his coffee slowly, looking out the window. The night was clear outside, with a full moon illuminating the empty parking lot. "How much do I owe?" he asked after 10 minutes. $3.50. He left a $20 bill on the counter. "Keep the change." "You don't have to," she said. "Everyone needs it," he replied, putting on his hat. "Oh, good night, Caitlin?" She waited for him to leave before taking the money. Her hands were still shaking when she put the bill in her pocket, along with the court letter. At home, sitting on the bed in her small apartment, Caitlin opened the shoebox she kept under the bed. Photos of Thomas filled every inch. Him at 2, covered in mashed potatoes. At 4, sleeping with his teddy bear. At 5, on his first day of school. Caitlin touched each photo. Her fingers still smelled of disinfectant. Her back ached. Her heart weighed a ton. "I'll bring you back," she whispered to the photos. "I swear I will." She put away the box and lay down without removing her uniform. The ceiling fan spun lazily, like at the restaurant. Tomorrow would be another work day. Another day without Thomas. Another day closer to the hearing. She closed her eyes, but couldn't sleep. The sun hadn't even risen when Caitlin arrived at her piece of land. The dew wet her sneakers as she walked between the rows of tomatoes. The dark sky was beginning to show purple patches on the horizon. She picked up the hoe, leaning against the fence. Her hands already had calluses in the right places. The smell of wet earth filled her lungs as she began to work. "It's going to rain today," she muttered, looking at the dark clouds approaching from the east. The wind was stronger than usual. Her back ached from working at the restaurant, but she continued digging. Each strike of the hoe sank into the earth with a dull sound. Sweat trickled down her neck despite the cold morning air. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Caitlin looked at the sky again. The clouds were closer now, heavy and dark. "Dawn, not today," she pleaded. "Please, not today." Another thunder, closer. The wind increased, shaking the plants. Dry leaves danced in the air. Caitlin dropped the hoe and ran to get the tarps stored in the small shed. The first drop fell when she was stretching the tarp over the tomatoes. The wind fought against her, pulling the plastic from her hands. Her fingers burned with the effort. "Need help?" Caitlin turned around. The man from the restaurant was standing by the fence, still wearing his cowboy hat. His boots were covered in mud. "What are you doing here?" she asked, holding the tarp tightly. "Saw you working when I passed by on the road," he answered, jumping over the fence. "Looks like it's going to be a strong storm." Another thunder exploded above them. The rain began to fall harder. "Grab that end!" Caitlin shouted over the noise of the wind. The man obeyed. Together, they stretched the tarp over the plants. The rain soaked them, making the work more difficult. "Got more tarps?" he asked, water running down his face. "In the shed." They worked in silence, rushing to cover as much of the plantation as possible. The storm roared around them. Lightning cut across the sky. "Think that's it?" he said after 20 minutes, breathing heavily. Caitlin nodded. Her arms were shaking from exhaustion. Wet clothes stuck to her skin. "Come," she pointed to the shed. "Have to wait it out." The shed smelled of wet earth and old tools. Caitlin sat on a makeshift bench made of planks. The man remained standing, taking off his wet hat. "John," he said. "My name is John." "Do you always help strangers during storms, John?" He smiled. "Only when they serve me coffee after hours." Lightning illuminated the shed through the cracks. Caitlin saw some drops falling through the roof. "It was my grandmother's," she said, looking at the wooden walls. "This land, she used to grow everything here. You've kept it well maintained." "I try." She wrung out the hem of her wet shirt. But sometimes it feels like it's not enough." John leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. "It's never easy taking care of land alone." "I don't have a choice." The storm continued outside. The sound of rain on the zinc roof was deafening. "This storm will pass," John said. "They all do." Caitlin looked at him. His clothes were also soaked, but he didn't seem to mind. "Why are you really here?" she asked. "Because sometimes people need help," he answered simply, "even if they don't ask." Caitlin's phone vibrated in her pocket. She took it out carefully, protecting it from the water. It was another message from Jason. Her hands started trembling again. John noticed, but said nothing. The rain gradually decreased. The sun was trying to appear between the clouds when they left the shed. "Thank you," Caitlin said, standing by the fence, "for the help." John put on his wet hat. "I'll be at the restaurant later. Need another coffee." He left before she could respond. Caitlin watched him walk away, feeling the water run down her back. The smell of wet earth was stronger now. She went back to examine the damage. Some plants had been uprooted by the wind, but most were protected by the tarps. Her hands were still shaking when she started working again. The sun finally appeared, strong and hot, drying her clothes as she continued struggling with the earth. The afternoon shift at Parada 301 was busier than usual. Caitlin served coffee and hamburgers non-stop, her arms still sore from working in the garden. The morning rain had brought in more truck drivers than normal, seeking shelter and hot food. "A table 5 asking for the check," Roberto shouted from the kitchen. She grabbed the bill and crossed the dining room. The doorbell rang. Her steps froze midway. Jason walked in, wearing his expensive suit and shiny shoes. His smile was cold as ice. "Long time no see, Kate," he said, sitting at the counter, still serving coffee to others. Caitlin delivered the check to table 5 with trembling hands. She returned behind the counter, keeping her distance. "What do you want, Jason?" "To see how you're doing." He looked around the restaurant with contempt. "Thomas asked about you yesterday." Her heart raced. "Is he okay?" "Better than ever. My new wife is great with him." Jason leaned over the counter. He barely remembers how it was before. "Stop it." "Stop what? I'm just being honest." His smile widened. "What, do you really think you have a chance at the hearing?" The doorbell rang again. John walked in, stopping when he saw the scene. Caitlin noticed he was wearing different clothes than in the morning. "Coffee, please," John ordered, sitting 2 chairs away from Jason. "We're not done with our conversation," Jason said, his voice lower. "Yes, we are." Caitlin served John coffee with shaking hands. Jason grabbed her wrist. Don't interrupt me." "Let her go." John's voice was calm but firm. "This is none of your business, cowboy." "Let go of her wrist now," Jason released slowly. "Just came to give a friendly message." He stood up, adjusting his tie. "Give up the hearing, Kate. You can't win. You have no money, no lawyer, nothing. I have my son." "No," he smiled. "Not anymore." Jason left. The bell rang one last time. Caitlin ran to the kitchen, her legs weak. "Hey!" Roberto caught her before she fell. "Breathe. Slowly." Tears ran down her face. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "He's going to take my son," she sobbed. "He's right. I can't fight." "Yes, you can." John was standing in the kitchen doorway. His face was serious. "I have a lawyer," he said. "One of the best in the state." Caitlin wiped her tears with her uniform sleeve. "I can't afford it." "You don't need to," John approached. "He owes me some favors." "Why?" she asked. "Why are you helping me?" "Because no one deserves to go through this alone." He took a card from his pocket. "Call him tomorrow. Tell him I sent you." Roberto cleared his throat. Orders piling up. Kate. She put the card in her pocket. Her hands were still shaking, but less. "Thank you," she said to John. "I'll be here if you need me." He placed money on the counter. "And Caitlin? He's wrong. You have more strength than you think." John left. Caitlin went back to work, serving coffee and hamburgers. The card weighed in her pocket like lead. At the end of her shift, sitting alone in the empty restaurant, she picked up the phone. Her hands hesitated over the numbers. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "Oh, for Thomas." She dialed the lawyer's number. The phone rang 3 times before someone answered. "Dr. Mendez's office," a female voice answered. Caitlin gripped the phone. "Hi, John gave me this number." "John Martinez?" "Yes." She took a deep breath. "He said the doctor could help me." There was a pause. "The doctor can see you tomorrow at 9. Would that work?" The restaurant opened at 10. There would be enough time. "Yes, that works," Caitlin replied. "Thank you." The next morning, she was sitting in a room with air conditioning that was too strong. Dr. Mendez was a short man with round glasses and gray hair. "John told me about your situation," he said, leafing through documents. "We need evidence against your ex-husband." "I have some photos." Caitlin took her phone from her purse. "From when he—" The office door opened. "Excuse me, doctor," the secretary said. "Someone wants to see Mrs. Caitlin." Thomas ran in. "Mommy!" Caitlin jumped up, hugging her son. The smell of children's shampoo filled her lungs. "I missed you," Thomas said against her neck. "I missed you too, my love." Tears were running down her face. "Oh, so much." "The teacher let me bring my drawing for you." He showed her a crumpled paper. "Look!" It was a drawing of him with Caitlin, holding hands. There was a smiling sun in the corner. "It's beautiful, son." "Thomas!" Jason's voice thundered from the reception. "Come here now." The boy flinched. "I need to go. Just a little longer." "Thomas!" "Everything will be okay," Caitlin whispered, kissing her son's forehead. "I promise." Thomas ran out. Jason appeared at the door, furious. "This is invasion of privacy," he growled. "I'll sue this office." "You're on private property," Dr. Mendez said calmly. "I suggest you leave." "This isn't over." Jason pointed at Caitlin. "You won't win." "That's enough." John's voice sounded behind him. "Leave now." Jason turned. His face turned red when he saw John. "You don't tell me what to do, hillbilly." "No," John agreed. "But the building security does. Want me to call them?" Jason adjusted his tie. "Come on, Thomas." The boy looked at his mother one last time before following his father. Caitlin sat heavily in the chair. Perfect timing. "Doctor," Mendez said to John, "as always, I came to see if everything was okay." John sat next to Caitlin, and apparently it wasn't. "Did he follow you?" the lawyer asked Caitlin. "Probably." She held Thomas's drawing against her chest. "He has people watching me." "That's good," Dr. Mendez smiled. "More evidence for us to use?" "Can you really help me?" John rarely asks for favors. The lawyer took off his glasses. When he does, it's important. We're going to win this custody case, Mrs. Caitlin." She looked at John, who was observing Thomas's drawing. "Your son has talent," he said. "He takes after his mother." Caitlin carefully folded the paper. "I used to like drawing, too." "Do you still like it?" "I don't have time anymore." John was silent for a moment. "Come with me. I want to show you something." "I have to work." "I called Roberto. He gave you the morning off." Dr. Mendez smiled. "Go, Mrs. Caitlin. I have work to do here." She followed John to his car, a dusty blue pickup truck. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." The truck stopped in front of a huge farm. Green fields stretched to the horizon. "Welcome to Hope Farm," John said. "My home." Caitlin looked at him, surprised. "You live here?" "Along with 20 other employees." He smiled. "Want to see it?" She hesitated for a moment. Thomas's drawing was still in her purse. "Yes." The tall grass brushed against Caitlin's legs as she followed John through the field. The morning sun warmed her back. 2 horses grazed peacefully in the distance. "How many hectares?" she asked. 200. John stopped at the first corral fence. "Started with 10. A group of workers waved from afar. John returned the greeting. "Why did you bring me here?" "I have a proposal." He turned to her. "I saw how you care for that land, how hard you work." "And? How about expanding?" John pointed to a barn next to the main house. "That space is empty. It would be perfect for a pie shop." Caitlin froze. "How do you know about the pies?" "Roberto," John smiled. "He said your pies are the best he's ever had." "I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because..." She ran her hand through her hair. Because that's not how things work. Her phone vibrated, a message from Dr. Mendez. Preliminary hearing scheduled for tomorrow. 9 a.m. Her legs weakened. John held her arm. Everything okay? Hearing. Her voice came out shaky. Tomorrow. John guided her to a nearby bench. Take a deep breath. I don't have money for rent this month, she said suddenly. How am I going to pay for a lawyer? I already told you, you don't need to pay. Everyone wants something in return. John sat beside her. Not everyone. The wind blew between them, bringing the smell of grass and wet earth. A dog barked in the distance. When I was your age, John began, I lost everything. My wife, my daughter. Caitlin looked at him. His face was serious, looking toward the horizon. Car accident, he continued. I was working, always working. I'm sorry. After that, I built all this. He gestured to the farm. But you know what I discovered. Success means nothing when you're alone. A chicken ran past them, followed by 3 chicks. I don't want your pity, Caitlin said. It's not pity. John stood up. It's partnership. You have talent, you have strength, you just need a chance. What if I lose? What if Jason wins? Then we fight again. He extended his hand. Come, I want to show you the barn. Caitlin took his hand. His calluses met hers. The barn was bigger inside. Large windows let in natural light. The smell of new wood filled the air. Our needs renovation, John said, but it has potential. Caitlin walked through the empty space. Her steps echoed on the concrete floor. Could put the counter there, she murmured. Tables near the windows. See? You're already planning. She turned to him. Why are you doing this? Because I believe in you. John leaned against the door. And because Thomas deserves to see his mother achieving her dreams, her son's name made her heart tighten. Tomorrow. The hearing was tomorrow. I need to go, she said. I have to prepare. Think about the proposal. John took the truck keys. No pressure. On the way back, Caitlin stayed silent. Thomas's drawing weighed in her purse. The empty barn danced in her mind. I want me to pick you up tomorrow? John asked when he stopped in front of the restaurant. No. She opened the door. I need to do this alone. You're not alone, Caitlin. She looked at him one last time before entering the restaurant. Roberto was waiting at the counter. How was it? I don't know. She took her apron. I really don't know. The courthouse was a gray and imposing building. Caitlin climbed the entrance steps with trembling legs. Her only suit, bought from a second-hand store, itched at her neck. Dr. Mendez was waiting for her in the hallway. Ready? No? Great. Let's go in. The hearing room was smaller than she had imagined. Jason was already there, talking with his lawyer. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car. Don't look at him, Dr. Mendez whispered. A focus on me. They sat down. The judge entered, a bald man with a severe expression. Case 2847, he announced. Custody of minor Thomas Santos. Caitlin felt her breakfast churning in her stomach. The back door opened silently. John entered, sitting in the last row. Mr. Jason Santos, the judge continued. You allege financial incapacity of the mother? Yes, Your Honor. Jason stood up. I have her bank statements here. Dr. Mendez raised his hand. Your Honor, we also have documents to present. He took a folder from his briefcase. Caitlin recognized the contract John had left at her house last night. Mrs. Santos is now a partner in a business venture, Dr. Mendez explained. A bakery at Hope Farm. Jason turned abruptly. His face turned red when he saw John. "Oh, this is fraudulent," Jason's lawyer protested. "She can barely pay rent." "All documents are in order," Dr. Mendez responded calmly. "Registered just yesterday." The judge examined the papers. "Seems legitimate. Proceed, Dr. Mendez." "We also have evidence of harassment." He pulled more papers from the folder. "Threatening messages, stalking." "Objection!" Jason's lawyer shouted. "Overruled," the judge cut in. "I want to see this evidence." Caitlin kept her eyes fixed on the table while the judge read. Her hands trembled under the polished wood. "Mr. Santos," the judge spoke after a while, "is this true?" "The messages are taken out of context," Jason responded, his voice tense. "And the police reports?" Silence. Caitlin felt tears in her eyes. "Your Honor." Dr. Mendez stood. "We request temporary joint custody until the final hearing." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Based on the evidence presented, I grant temporary joint custody." "But," Jason began, "Thomas will stay alternately with each parent," the judge continued, "1 week with each, until the final hearing." Caitlin covered her mouth with her hands. Tears streamed down her face. "You may pick up your son today," the judge concluded. "Hearing adjourned," Jason stormed out, his lawyer running after him. Dr. Mendez smiled at Caitlin. "First victory," he said. "But we still have work ahead." John approached when they left the room. "Congratulations." "You registered the contract yesterday?" Caitlin asked. "Thought it might help." He smiled. "And it did." "I'm going to get Thomas now," she said. Want to come with me?" "Of course." In John's car, Caitlin finally took a deep breath. "I can't believe I did it." "We did it," he corrected. "And this is just the beginning." They stopped in front of the school. Thomas was playing in the yard with other children. "Mommy!" he shouted when he saw her. "What are you doing here?" Caitlin knelt down, hugging her son. "I came to get you." "You're sleeping at my house tonight." "Really?" His eyes sparkled. "Really?" She wiped away a tear. "And you know what else? I'm going to show you a special place." Thomas looked at John, curious. "Who is he?" "A friend." Caitlin held her son's hand. "A good friend." John's pickup truck stopped in front of the barn at Hope Farm. Thomas jumped from the back seat, his eyes wide at the sight of the place. "Is it a real farm?" he asked, pointing to the horses. "Real," John replied. "Want to meet the animals later?" Thomas looked at Caitlin, asking for permission. "First, I want to show you something," she said, taking her son's hand. They entered the empty barn. Sunlight came through the large windows, making patterns on the concrete floor. "What's going to be here, Mom?" "A pie shop." Caitlin knelt beside him. "I like the ones Grandma used to make, remember?" "The apple ones?" His eyes sparkled. "Those exactly." Thunder rumbled in the distance. John looked through the window. "More rain coming," he said. Thomas squeezed his mother's hand. "I don't like thunder." "Me neither," Caitlin smiled. "But we're safe here." The rain started falling, first slowly, then hard. The sound on the zinc roof was comforting. "Come," John called. "I'll show you the main house before the rain gets worse." They ran through the wet grass. Thomas laughed, jumping in the puddles that were starting to form. The front door opened. A police car stopped on the dirt road. "Caitlin Santos." The officer got out, shielding himself from the rain. "Yes?" "Mr. Jason Santos is filing a complaint against you." He handed her a wet paper. For trespassing. What? Caitlin took the document with trembling hands. He claims you don't have authorization to be here. Yes, she does. John stepped forward. She's my partner. The officer looked from one to the other. Even so, I need to ask you to leave. No, Thomas shouted, hugging his mother's waist. She didn't do anything wrong. Son, Caitlin began. The property is mine, John interrupted. I have all the necessary documents. I'm sorry, sir. The officer shook his head. Court orders. Thomas started crying. The rain was falling harder now. It's okay, Caitlin said, swallowing her tears. Come on, Thomas. You can't go in this rain, John protested. The patrol car can give you a ride, the officer offered. No. John took the truck keys. I'll drive them. On the way to Caitlin's apartment, Thomas fell asleep in the back seat. Silent tears ran down her face. He won't win, John said softly. He already has. She looked out the window. How am I going to open the shop now? We'll sort this out. John stopped the car. Trust me. Caitlin carried sleeping Thomas inside. When she returned, John was still there, in the rain. I'm sorry, she said, for involving you in all this. Don't apologize. He came closer. You're stronger than you think, Caitlin. The rain was soaking them both, but neither moved. Why do you keep helping me? John touched her face gently. Because you deserve to be happy. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Caitlin closed her eyes, feeling his hand on her face. Mommy? Thomas's voice came from the door. Is everything okay? She stepped back quickly. Everything's fine, son. I'll be right up. John went back to the truck. See you tomorrow? Caitlin nodded, picking up Thomas. From the apartment window, they watched the truck leave in the rain. Thomas yawned in her arms. I liked him, Mom. Me too, son. She kissed his forehead. Me too. The phone rang at 6 in the morning. Caitlin fumbled in the darkness, trying not to wake Thomas, who was sleeping beside her. Hello? Mrs. Santos. It was Dr. Mendez. We have an emergency. She sat up in bed. Thomas stirred, but didn't wake. What happened? Jason filed for an injunction. He's alleging parental alienation. What? Her voice came out louder than intended. He has photos of you with John. He's saying you're trying to replace him as a father. Caitlin looked at Thomas sleeping. Her heart was pounding in her chest. When? Hearing this afternoon. The lawyer sighed. 3 o'clock. But it's my week with Thomas. I know. That's why we need to act quickly. She got up slowly from the bed. What do we do? Come to the office now and bring John. Thomas opened his eyes as she hung up. Wait, it's early, Mom. I know, love. She kissed his forehead. I need to take care of some things. I'll leave you with Roberto, okay? At the restaurant. He perked up. Can I have a milkshake? You can. Roberto was already opening Parada 301 when they arrived. He looked at Caitlin's tense face and understood immediately. Go to the kitchen, champ, he said to Thomas. I'll teach you how to make hamburgers. Caitlin grabbed her phone as soon as Thomas disappeared through the kitchen door. Her hands were shaking when she dialed John's number. I need you, she said when he answered. I'm coming. Dr. Mendez's office was cold. John arrived 5 minutes after her, still wearing his work clothes from the farm. Show me the photos, he asked. The lawyer spread several images on the table. Caitlin and John at the farm. The two in the rain. Him touching her face. Son of a bitch, John muttered. He had someone following me, Caitlin said. That's illegal, Dr. Mendez said. But it will work in our favor. How? Shows he's obsessive, controlling. The lawyer grabbed more papers. And there's more. He showed financial documents, suspicious transactions, large deposits with unclear origins. Where did you get this? Caitlin asked. I have my contacts. Dr. Mendez smiled. Jason isn't as clean as he appears. John studied the photos in silence. I'm sorry, Caitlin said to him. I put you in a situation. Stop. He took her hand. It's not your fault. Dr. Mendez cleared his throat. I need both of you at the hearing. But you have to be careful. Why? Because this is exactly what Jason wants. The lawyer pointed to their joined hands. He wants to prove there's something more. Caitlin let go of John's hand as if it burned. And is there? Dr. Mendez asked. She looked at John. He kept his eyes on the photos. No, she answered. There's nothing. Silence weighed in the room. Dr. Mendez organized the papers. Great. See you at 3. Outside, John stopped Caitlin before she could get in the car. Is it true? What? That there's nothing. She looked at her own feet. I need to get Thomas. Caitlin, I can't. She swallowed her tears. Not now. John nodded slowly. See you at the hearing. She drove back to the restaurant with blurred vision. Thomas was in the kitchen, covered in flour, smiling. Look, Mom! He showed her a crooked hamburger. I made it. Caitlin hugged him tight, no longer able to hold back her tears. Why are you crying? He asked. Because I love you so much. She kissed his flour-covered face. So very much. The clock showed 11 o'clock. 4 hours until the hearing that could change everything. The courthouse hallway was packed. Caitlin sat on a hard bench, adjusting her suit collar for the 10th time. Roberto had stayed with Thomas at the restaurant. Dr. Mendez arrived at 2:45, carrying his leather briefcase. Jason is already in the room, he informed. With 3 lawyers. Caitlin felt her stomach turn. 3? It doesn't matter how many there are. The lawyer smiled. What matters is who's right. John arrived 2 minutes later. He had changed from his farm clothes into a dark blue suit. His eyes met Caitlin's for a second before looking away. Ready? Dr. Mendez asked. The hearing room seemed smaller than last time. Jason and his lawyers occupied the entire prosecution table. He smiled when he saw Caitlin enter. All rise, the officer announced. The judge was different from the previous one. A middle-aged woman with gray hair and a stern look. To case 2847, B, she began, injunction for parental alienation. Jason's first lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we have evidence that the defendant is trying to replace the father figure. He projected the photos on the wall. Caitlin at the farm with John. The two in the rain. The defendant began a romantic relationship without considering the psychological impact on the child. Objection. Dr. Mendez stood. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. Counselor, stick to the facts. The facts are clear. The lawyer pointed to John. This man is trying to take the father's place. Your Honor, Dr. Mendez interrupted. I'd like to present other evidence. He projected his own photos. Jason following Caitlin. Men taking hidden pictures. The plaintiff hired private investigators without judicial authorization. Dr. Mendez explained. He's stalking my client. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his chair. We also have, Dr. Mendez continued, evidence of suspicious transactions by the plaintiff. The financial documents appeared on the screen. Jason stood up abruptly. "This is irrelevant." "Sit down, Mr. Santos," the judge ordered. "Dr. Mendez, what's the relevance?" "The plaintiff is using money of dubious origin to finance this persecution." The room fell silent. Jason whispered nervously with his lawyers. "Your Honor," Dr. Mendez said, "I call John Martinez to testify." John rose slowly. Caitlin held her breath. "Mr. Martinez," Dr. Mendez began, "what is your relationship with Mrs. Santos?" "I'm her business partner," John replied. Nothing more." "The photos show something different," Jason's lawyer interrupted. "They show one friend helping another," John said firmly. "Mrs. Santos is a dedicated mother. She works hard. She deserves a chance." "And the touches? The looks?" "Objection!" Dr. Mendez shouted. "Badgering." "Sustained." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Martinez, continue." John looked directly at Jason. "I know men like you. Men who use money and power to control others. Why you?" Jason started to rise. "Silence!" The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Santos, one more time and you'll be removed from the room." John continued. "Thomas needs his mother, and she needs him. It's that simple." The judge took notes for several minutes. Silence weighed in the room. "But based on the evidence," she finally spoke, "I deny the injunction." Caitlin released the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm ordering an investigation into Mr. Santos' activities." Jason rose furiously. "This is absurd." "Remove yourself," the judge ordered. "Now!" He stormed out, followed by his lawyers. Dr. Mendez smiled at Caitlin. "Oh, we won this battle." She nodded, tears in her eyes. John had already left the room. Caitlin found John in the courthouse parking lot. He was leaning against his truck, looking at the clear sky. "Why did you leave like that?" she asked. "Needed air." He kept looking up. "And you needed your moment." "John, you don't need to say anything." He finally looked at her. "I did what needed to be done." Her phone rang. It was Roberto. "Thomas is asking for you," he said. "And there's something else. Jason just came by." Caitlin froze. What did he want? "Took the boy. Said he was going to the police station to file a report." "No!" She gripped the phone. "He can't." John was already opening the truck door. "Get in." They reached the police station in 10 minutes. Thomas was sitting in a chair, crying. Jason was yelling at a police officer. "My son!" Caitlin ran to Thomas. "Don't touch him!" Jason shouted. "Mr. Santos!" the officer intervened. "Calm down! She's destroying my family!" Jason pointed at John. "With his help." "Dad," Thomas spoke for the first time. "Stop yelling!" Jason froze. The officer took the opportunity to position himself between them. "Sir, we have no basis for a report," he said. "The joint custody is valid." "She's dating," Jason tried again, "putting a stranger in my son's life." "You barely know me," Thomas cried. "You just yell." The room fell silent. Jason looked at his son as if seeing him for the first time. "Thomas," he began, "I want to go with Mommy." The boy hugged Caitlin. "Please." "The court order is clear," the officer said. "It's the Mother's Week." Jason ran his hand over his face. For the first time, he looked defeated. "Fine." He grabbed his car keys. "Fine." John, who had been quiet until then, stepped forward. "Your son deserves better than this," he said quietly. Be better." Jason looked at him for a long moment, then left without saying anything. On the way home, Thomas fell asleep in the truck's back seat. Caitlin looked out the window, exhausted. "I'm sorry." John broke the silence. "For what I said in court. About there being nothing between us. About knowing men like Jason." He sighed. "I shouldn't have made it personal." "But is there?" she asked softly. "Something between us?" John stopped at a red light. "You know there is." Thomas stirred in the back seat. Caitlin looked at her son in the rearview mirror. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too." John started driving again. "That's why I ran from the room. I thought it was because of me." "It was." He smiled sadly. "Because every time I look at you, it gets harder to pretend it's just friendship." The rest of the drive was silent. When they reached the apartment, Thomas woke up. "John," he called sleepily. "Will you make hamburgers for us?" Caitlin and John looked at each other. "Another day, champ." John ruffled his hair. "Promise." Thomas went up the stairs first. Caitlin stopped at the door. "Thank you," she said, "for everything today." "Always." She hesitated for a moment, then leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Good night, John." A week later, Caitlin parked in front of Hope Farm. Thomas jumped from the back seat before she could even turn off the car. "Careful!" she shouted, but he was already running toward the barn. John was waiting at the entrance, holding a clipboard. He smiled when he saw Thomas. "Hey, champ! Ready to work?" "Yes." Thomas skidded to a stop. "Where are the horses?" "After work," John winked. "First, we have a shop to build." Caitlin approached slowly. It was her first time back since the hearing. "The builders arrive in an hour," John informed. "I thought we could review the plans before." Inside the barn, plans and drawings covered a makeshift table. "Look, Mom!" Thomas pointed to a drawing. "Like your pie." It was a simple logo, Caitlin's Pies, in cursive letters, with an apple pie drawing beside it. "You did this?" she asked John. Thomas helped. He smiled. "The apple was his idea." "It's the best pie in the world," Thomas declared. A truck stopped outside. The builders began unloading materials. "Will it take long?" Thomas asked. 2 weeks, John answered. "If we work hard." "Can I help?" "Of course." John handed him a small hard hat. "You're our junior supervisor." Thomas put on the hat, proud. He ran outside to watch the builders working. "He seems happy," John observed. "He is?" Caitlin touched the logo drawing. "Happier than I've seen him in a long time." "And you?" She looked at him. John was still holding the clipboard, but his eyes were fixed on her. "I am too." "Mom!" Thomas shouted from outside. "Come see!" The builders had already started tearing down a wall. Dust rose in the morning air. "Watch your eyes," she said to Thomas. "I know." He pointed to the safety goggles one of the workers had given him. John came up behind her, worried. "Always," she sighed, "but less than before." "Has Jason shown up again?" "No." She watched Thomas helping carry small bricks. I think he finally understood. A breeze blew, carrying the smell of coffee from the main house. The workers had turned on a radio, soft country music playing. "About that night," John began. "John!" "I need to say it." He put down the clipboard. "I don't want to pretend anymore." Caitlin looked at Thomas, now sitting on a pile of sand, drawing with a stick. "I don't either," she admitted. John took her hand. This time, she didn't let go. "Mom!" Thomas shouted again. "Can I ride the horse now?" She laughed. After lunch." "Promise!" Promise. John squeezed her hand gently. How about we have a picnic? There's good shade near the stable. Thomas jumped excitedly. Can it be hamburgers? Not today, Caitlin smiled. I brought apple pie. Her son's eyes lit up. Grandma's? The same one. John released her hand slowly. The touch left a tingling on her skin. I'll get a blanket, he said. Caitlin watched him walk away. Thomas was still playing in the sand. The builders worked to the sound of country music. For the first time in a long time, she felt at home. 2 months later, Caitlin woke up before sunrise. The smell of dough already came from the apartment kitchen. Thomas, she called, putting on her apron. I'm here. His voice came from the small counter. I've already sorted the apples. He was sitting on a tall stool, focused on peeling the fruit with a plastic knife. Watch your fingers, she warned. I know, Mom. He showed the perfectly peeled apples, just like Grandma taught. It was the big day. The shop's opening. Caitlin started preparing the dough, her fingers working from memory. What time is John coming? Thomas asked. At 7. She checked the clock. 5:30. We need to have 10 pies ready by then. Can I add the cinnamon? You can. They worked in comfortable silence. The sun began to rise, painting the kitchen gold. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. Thomas ran to open it. Brought reinforcements, John said from the door, carrying boxes. Roberto was behind him with more boxes. The pies, Caitlin asked. All here. Roberto smiled. Spent the night making them. You didn't have to. Of course I did. He ruffled Thomas's hair. It's a special day. John left the boxes in the kitchen and stopped beside Caitlin. Nervous? Very. He kissed her forehead lightly. Thomas pretended to make a disgusted face, but was smiling. They arrived at the farm at 8. The barn was unrecognizable. Light wood counters, rustic tables, the logo on the main wall. Wow, Thomas whispered. All ready, John said. Just need the pies. They arranged everything in silence. Roberto organized the new kitchen. Thomas put flowers on the tables. At 9, the first car stopped at the entrance. All ready? Caitlin felt her heart speed up. Roberto's marketing, John smiled. He spread the word through the entire restaurant. More cars arrived. Soon, a small line formed at the door. Breathe, John whispered, holding her hand. You can do this. Thomas opened the main door. Welcome to my mom's shop. People entered smiling. The smell of freshly baked pie filled the air. This recipe, an elderly lady commented after the first bite, reminds me of my childhood. It was my grandmother's, Caitlin explained, serving coffee. She would be proud. The lady smiled. By noon, half the pies were gone. Thomas ran between tables, filling coffee cups. Going well? John asked, hugging Caitlin from behind. Couldn't be better. A familiar car stopped outside. Jason got out, adjusting his tie. Caitlin froze. John squeezed her shoulders gently. Want me to ask him to leave? No. She took a deep breath. Let him in. Jason stopped at the door, looking around. Thomas saw his father and ran to him. Dad! Come see the kitchen. Jason followed his son, looking uncomfortable. He stopped at the counter where Caitlin was. One slice of apple, he asked. Please. She served in silence. Jason tried a piece. Just like she used to make, he said quietly. Grandma taught me, Thomas said proudly. You? Jason hesitated. Well, you did a good job here, Kate. Thank you. He paid, left a generous tip, and left after hugging Thomas. "Are you okay?" John asked when he left. "I am?" She smiled. "Really am." The afternoon flew by. When the sun began to set, Roberto turned on the outside lights. "Last batch coming out," he announced from the kitchen. Thomas had fallen asleep at one of the tables, surrounded by drawings of future pies. "I think we tired out our supervisor," John joked, picking up the boy. It was quite a day. Caitlin started cleaning the counter. The first of many. She stopped, looking around. The empty tables, the smell of pie in the air, the soft lights. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For believing in me, for not giving up." John gently placed Thomas on a couch in the corner, came back, and took her hands. "I'll never give up." Outside, the last customers were leaving. The sky was painted orange and pink. "You know what Grandma always said." Caitlin rested her head on his chest. "What?" "That sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters." John kissed the top of her head. Thomas slept peacefully on the couch. The smell of apple and cinnamon still lingered in the air. "She was right," he said. Caitlin closed her eyes, smiling. Finally, after so long, she was at peace. She was home. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.